Hey, welcome back to How to Barbecue Right. Today we're talking brisket. And I've got a big, beautiful 8-pound brisket flat that I'm going to show you how to cook out of my big green egg. You can follow along with this recipe and do it on any kind of smoker or any kind of grill that you got that you can set up the temperature to cook kind of low and slow. But it's going to be great for doing brisket. And this is my first time at doing a brisket on the green egg, so I'm excited to see how it turns out. I'm going to hold the temps, right in that 250 degree range. And it's going to take, about an hour per pound to do this brisket flat at that. So we're looking, 7 to 8 hour cook with the size of this brisket. Right out the gate with a brisket flat. I bought this one at Sam's, and there's not really much you can do to it. They're already trimmed pretty well, but what I did do, and you can see from some of the cuts, it had a little bit of oxidation on the side where a little bit of gray area is. And I just took my knife and went around and just kind of knocked off some of that all the way around. It wasn't a whole lot, but it still left me with a big portion of the brisket. Unfortunately on this brisket, you don't know it when you buy them, but sometimes they have these butcher's cuts, and it's okay when you're cooking one at home. If you're doing competition brisket like I do a lot of times, a cut like that could ruin you if it's right in the center of the meat. When it's this far back on the flat, it's not that big a deal. But we're cooking at home today, so this butcher's cut's not gonna bother us in the least bit. So let's get started seasoning this brisket flat today. Now what I typically do with the brisket is I use 3 layers of seasoning on it. I don't put anything down to start with. I just took it out of the cryovac, rinsed off whatever moisture had come out of the brisket, patted it dry with the paper towel. Then I start applying my seasoning because I don't use any kind of slather or anything on beef. The first thing that I'm going to use is an all-purpose seasoning. It's got salt, pepper, and garlic in it. You've seen me use it before. You can layer salt, pepper, and garlic on if you like, but the ratio is pretty simple. It's like a 2-1, 1/2 ratio of salt, pepper, and garlic. And I'm going to get a good dose of this on all sides. So I'm just starting with the top of the flat. So make sure you get the sides. And we're also going to get the bottom. And you'll notice on this brisket that it's got about a 1/4 inch layer of fat on bottom, and I always leave that on the flat. For one, when I'm slicing brisket, I want it to have just a trace of fat. But when you're cooking on a grill where your heat source is coming from right underneath your meat, you need that fat as an extra layer of insulation. And I'm going to cook this fat down the whole time we're cooking. So that fat, I need it to keep the heat off of it. It's going to keep that brisket flat moist throughout the whole time. Now the next seasoning that I put on my brisket is a good barbecue rub. Today I'm using My Killer Hogs rub. This is what I use in competition, but you can use whatever barbecue rub that you like, that you're comfortable with using. And you'll notice none of these are super heavy that I'm putting on because we're layering flavors and I don't want one to overpower the other. So I just got a good light layer of the AP, good light layer of the barbecue rub, and then we're coming back to this side. That's all that goes on the bottom on the fat side. AP and your barbecue rub. Now we're gonna just hit the side. I got the sides really good. Hit the top. Now what I like to do is just kind of pat this into the meat just a little bit, so it'll form a nice bark. I don't want to lose any of it. Now right away, the seasoning start pulling out a little bit of moisture on the meat, so it kind of makes a paste as you pat it in. That's what's going to really create that good flavor on the outside. Now last but not least, on my brisket flat, I always like to add a little texture at the end, and that's where I come back and I use a coarser rub, like a Montreal steak rub or a steak and chop rub, something that's got some coarse salts, some coarser grain pepper in it, and then whatever other seasons that you like. I just happen to like the way Montreal tastes. I like that flavor profile. It's got a little bit of lemon pepper. It's got some herbs in it, but it really makes a nice crust on brisket, and that's why I always use it on my brisket. And it's not heavy, and I don't need it on the fat side. I'm just really wanting it for texture and a little bit of flavor. So you can see the different textures that's in that coarser grain Montreal rub. And I'm just going to kind of pat it in loosely too, not real hard. Just kind of pressing it into the top of that brisket flat. Now this brisket's ready for the smoker right now. And since I'm cooking this one at home, I'm not injecting it. I'm not adding any other flavors to the inside of the meat. If it was a contest, it'd be a different story. I'd be trying to you know, really pump that flavor up, get some more beefiness into it, because you got to really wow those judges. But here at home, I just really want the essence of beef. I want, you know, the real natural style brisket, and a good brisket really doesn't need anything for my liking, my taste. Now, if you want to add some injection to it, hey, feel free. I've got some recipes out there on how to barbecue right. Great brisket injections, but try it without it, and that way you'll kind of know what the beef that you're cooking is gonna taste like. It's awesome flavor when you got smoke, you got a good seasoning, you got some good heat. It's gonna be all the flavor that you need for really a traditional style brisket. This one's ready for the fire. I'm gonna go outside, get the big green egg fired up for some indirect cooking. Stick around, we'll show you how we're gonna cook this brisket. It's gonna be fun. All right, I'm out here at my big green egg. I've got it fired up. You can see it sitting on right at 250 degrees, which is gonna be perfect for this low and slow brisket. And I've got my top daisy well cracked, you know, just all sides pretty evenly, but it's barely open. I would say maybe that's a quarter. And then down low, I'm sitting, you know, right about an inch. And that's, you know, after we got it good and going for about 20 minutes, I kind of set these vents and it's stabilized right there, and it'll hold this temp throughout the whole cook. So now we're ready to get the brisket on. I've got a couple pieces of pecan wood and one piece of hickory in here, and I've got my diverter set up with the full pan on it. So now we're ready to cook. I just have to get the brisket on. We're going fat side down. I'm just gonna center it up right over my little drip pan I have over the plate setter. Kind of square it up. You know, a lot of times with brisket, if you straighten it up, it's going to cook however you set it, it's going to cook. So I just like to keep the edges kind of straight. All right, so we got the brisket on the grill. We got to get the lid closed, get some of this good smoke on it. We'll check on it in a couple hours and look at it, but it's going to take a long time. You know, we're looking 7-8 hours for this brisket. I'm going to wrap it about halfway through to when we get the color. So I'll show you what it looks like when it gets that proper color that I want to wrap it at. All right, this brisket's been on about 4.5 hours on the egg, and I haven't touched it. I kept the lid closed. That's one thing with brisket. I don't baste them. I don't open the lid. I don't do anything, because I want it to get that color on the outside. I know after about 4 or 5 hours, it's going to be in that 160 to 170 range. That's why I bought my new Thermopin out here to check it, see where it's at, see if it's time to wrap. But I'm betting it is time. Oh yeah, we're starting to get some moisture pull up a little bit from the top. Briskets, you know, the juice is coming up, so it's kind of keeping it moist, but it's starting to get that look, that dark color, and I don't want it to get real dark, so this is where I want to stop it, get it wrapped. Let me just show you what the temp is. Stick this Thermopin right in the center of it there. Look at that. 161, 162, that's perfect time to wrap. That's where you want to catch it. You don't want it to go much higher than that. Cool thing about this new Thermopin, this MK4 model, you can rotate it. Look at that, it rotates the dial right there for you, so it's easy to read. So I'm loving this new Thermopin. But let's get this brisket off and get it inside, show you how we're gonna wrap it up. All right, we're back inside with the brisket. I just want to show you real quick how I'm going to wrap it up. Now, I do want to add a little bit of extra liquid. The brisket's still going to cook out some jus, some moisture from it, but I want to add just to fortify it, so I have some extra liquid there at the end. And I just got about a cup of beef broth, and I'm not going to pour it over the brisket because I don't want to wash out any of the seasoning that we've got built up in that bark. I'm just kind of pouring it around it. Just kind of pull your foil up to where it'll catch it. And it just adds a little bit extra moisture in there to keep that brisket steaming and to add, you know, fortify our jus that we're going to make as this brisket cooks. I always go 2 layers on a brisket, kind of crisscrossed. So that was the first layer, and I'm just going to bring up the second layer around it. And that's plenty of foil right there for our flat. Now we're ready to go right back out on the grill. All right, so we're just placing our brisket back in the same place. Dead center of the cooking grate on the egg. I do want to get a probe in it at this point because, you know, every time I'm cooking brisket, this is the part where it's crucial to know what those internal temps are. I'm just going right in the dead center, kind of front part of the flat, in just a little ways. I don't want to go all the way through it because I want an accurate reading. And then I'm going to close the lid, and I've got it set for 200 degrees. I know 198, 200 degrees, that brisket should be done. Now, you always want to check brisket there for feel. It should be sliding in real smooth, almost no resistance. So I've got one of these ThermoWorks Dot. Now this is just a simple All it does is tell some temperature on it. You see we're up to 174 where I probed it, right in that front center part of the flat. Got it set for 200 degrees, and we're just gonna watch it. You know, at this point, we've probably got another couple hours to slowly get up there, holding the egg at the same temp. Whatever cooker you're cooking on, do the same thing. Just hold it steady. You want your heat to remain constant, and you don't really need any smoke at this point, so we've got it wrapped up. So just get it cooked and get it tender, then we're gonna rest it. So stick around, we'll show you how we tell when this brisket flat is done. Okay, it's been about 2 hours, and you can see on our alarm here that we're reaching 201, and that's gonna be perfect for this brisket. I'm gonna go ahead and get it off now, but it's not completely done because no brisket's done until it rests. And I like to give them at least 2 hours. If you can go 4 hours, it's great for a brisket. So I'm gonna take the probe out and then move it over to a pan here. And I put it down in a pan because I'm gonna put it in a cooler, and just in case any of the juice leaks out, I've still got it caught. And now I've also got like an old towel, and I'm just gonna drape this towel around it kind of for some extra insulation. So now I'm ready to take the brisket, wrapped and all, drop it down in just a dry cooler and let it sit. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Take it inside, put it in a cooler, let it hang out in the kitchen. We'll show you how we finish this brisket and slice it here in a couple hours. Come back, you're gonna wanna see this, I promise you. All right, we're back to our brisket now. It's rested for 2 hours out in the cooler, and I had that old towel around it. And now it's time for the best part, and that's slicing it and getting ready to eat it. Before we do that, let's just recap what we did so far. Now, today we're cooking a brisket flat. We started out, we seasoned it with some of the AP seasoning, that salt, pepper, and garlic. We had a layer of barbecue rub on both sides. And then on the top, we added another layer of a coarse ground Montreal seasoning to the top. That was gonna give it that texture. We put it out on our big green egg, set to about 250, a nice low and slow smoke with some pecan wood and just a piece of the hickory just to give it just a balanced smoke flavor. I really want that brisket to have a nice smoky flavor. And we let it go until the internal temperature was right about 165, but really we were looking for that color, catching it before it got too dark, but we still wanted it to have a nice bark going on. Then we wrapped it up in 2 layers of foil that we crisscrossed. We added 1 cup of just regular old beef broth from the box, and we let that kind of make the jus inside the foil, and we cooked it till it hit 200 degrees. That's how we knew that brisket was done. The probe was real soft in it, and that's exactly what I was looking for. And most importantly, we wrapped it up in that towel and let it rest for 2 hours in a dry cooler. So now we're at the point where I can unwrap it, take it out of the juice, and we're gonna slice it. So let's see what we're working with. And you still need to wear gloves because even though the brisket's been off the cooker for 2 hours, it's still holding a lot of heat in that dry cooker. So now we're gonna slice the brisket. And you always, when you're doing brisket, you wanna go with the grain. This grain's kind of running this way on this flat. So I just know that I'm gonna be making slices right across that grain. So I'm just gonna start up here on the nose of it. And I'm leaving that fat on the bottom. You can see that juice, that smoke ring we have. Now you want to, typically brisket, they say a number 2 pencil slice. That's what we slice it for in competitions. So that's what I'm going for today. It's about a 1/4 inch. If you like it thinner, hey, make it thinner. But this is how I like it. All right, so we've got that brisket all the way sliced up there. I'm gonna turn it where you can see it because it's kind of hard to slice it for the camera, but that's what I wanted you to see. Go ahead and get a piece out. When a brisket will slap each other, touch itself like that and hold together, you know it's done. And a lot of people, don't like that fat on the bottom. This is the perfect time to get rid of it. You can just take your knife, knock it right off, and it comes right off. You've got a beautiful, beautiful piece of brisket. With tug tender, comes right apart. It's got some pull, but then it comes right apart. It is hard to beat good brisket when it's been rested for a couple hours, had some of that juice soak back up in it. It's got a good smoky taste. So now you take that jus that we had and you can let it cool and get the fat off the top of it, and it makes a perfect liquid to serve, kind of a basting liquid to reserve over this brisket to keep it moist. This is nothing wrong with going right to the plate right now. If you want to put out a board of brisket like this Just stand back and watch everybody go to town on it. Promise you it won't last long. The green egg cooks a great brisket flat. You can do this on any cooker. Just follow the same times and temperatures, and the technique will get you to this same point. Can't go wrong with it. I might have to have me one more piece before we let go today. Well, that's good brisket. Hey, if you like what we're doing, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. We're gonna be putting out videos like this all year long. Come back and check us out. We'll see you next time.